Can you deal with that?
Da-da-da-da. Hello there, my name's Vinny Voodoo, and in my most recent video I announced that Call of Duty Warzone has dropped support for the high resolution texture packs. Little caveat here, I've been reliably informed by my subscribers that Xbox users at least can continue to use the existing 5 packs if installed. Now of course as time goes on these will become less and less effective as new operators are introduced that those texture packs won't address. So I recommend if you've got an Xbox and you want to keep on using it, do so, but do appreciate that as time goes on, that space will be sort of wasted on your hard drive probably, and they may even patch it out. Now on the PlayStation platform, it automatically uninstalled them and you can't reinstall them. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about texture packs. We're here to talk about on-demand, high-resolution texture streaming, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll appreciate exactly what that is, how it does it, how it affects the game, how it affects the visuals, and whether or not you should choose it. So without further ado, why don't we find out exactly what on-demand high-resolution texture streaming is. Well, I'll tell you what the high-resolution on-demand texture streaming option isn't, and that's its high-resolution on-demand texture streaming. In fact, it's not streaming at all. It's really badly named. What it actually does is create a 24 gigabyte bin, and I'll show you how to enable it and what the various settings of it are in a moment. And in that bin, it puts high-resolution textures of operators that you come across as you're playing the game. Now, the next time you play the game, it'll go look in the bin first to see if it has a high-resolution version of him, assuming you have texture streaming enabled, and if so, slaps it on the enemy that's right in front of you, or colleague. Now, let's say that there's in the store, and I'll go to the store here, and we have a outfit here, Disciple. Now, let's say that just appeared on the store. In fact, it did, a day or so ago. I've never bought this set. I've never looked at Disciple. I don't have Disciple's clothing on my hard drive. So unless the game's loading up a random amount of textures when the game starts, and it may be doing that, there's no way for the game to have this, to access this, without grabbing it online. So it's already doing what the high-resolution texture streaming option is doing. It's just doing it for standard textures and then not storing. What the high-resolution texture option does is download high-resolution versions of that and then put them in the 24 gig bin for future use. So really think of the 24 gig bin and this option as a kind of mini texture pack that evolves over time. And as skins aren't used, like John Rambo and stuff, it'll go, you know what, I haven't used this in ages, I need to make room for newer skins that are being used, and shuffles them off out of the bin and then puts the newer stuff in for future games. It's that simple. It's a mini evolving texture pack. It doesn't stream textures in any way in the traditional use of the word stream, and it's certainly not like Google Stadia or Game Pass streaming. It's just a bin of textures that are got on the fly as you go around Verdansk. So to get this option enabled, you simply go to your options. I keep calling it settings. I'm old school. It's settings. You go to your settings, you go to general, and you go down the bottom. There's old game installs there showing the texture packs are no longer there. We will sadly go past there with a little violin noise. And you go up to on-demand texture streaming. And on the right it says downloads high quality textures to your hard disk from the internet as you play the game. Now, as I've said, it does that anyway. It does it with billboards, it does it with certain environment items, and it also does it with skins that you haven't come across before. It just does it in standard definition. The two options currently are disabled and high quality. Now, the fact that it says high quality there suggests to me that at some point there'll be a medium quality and a low quality, and possibly an ultra high quality for the current gen consoles, but right now it's disabled or high quality. If you change it from disabled to high quality, you have to reboot the game to get it to work, and the same if you disable it. It'll continue to work until you reboot the game, and then it'll disable on-demand texture streaming. Now, they keep adding new options here, so by the time that you watch this video it may have changed, but if you press X or square, depending on your platform, you will get bandwidth usage, unlimited or limited. And unlimited obviously means just keep getting textures forever. I don't have a data cap. I don't care. if you set it to limited, you can set a daily download limit, and you end up with this little graph, as you can see on the right there, showing you how close you are to the daily limit. And in fact, if I actually go down to a gig, and you can put the daily limit between 1 gig and 64 gig a day. Now, don't confuse this with the size of the bin. It's not. It's how much you can download before it switches off downloading high resolution textures. It'll still access the bin for the rest of the game. So if I set it to a gig, go up and come down, you can see I've surpassed that several times. It doesn't matter, I have unlimited bandwidth, but it's something to note if you do have a data cap, or for some reason you do want to limit this option, you may hit it quite quickly. When I'm making these videos, I hit the limit at 1 gig within about 10 minutes. But at 64 gig, you should be able to have quite a lot of sessions in a single day, if that's the cap you want to set. Obviously, if you set it at a gig, you'll get 30 gig a month, in terms of 1 gig a day. So that's how you set it up, and that's how you can change some of the options. Like I say, there may be more by the time you review this video. And so let's go on to seeing exactly what they do visually. Right, so what does this option actually do? Well, it's effectively the same as what the high resolution texture packs did. And if you've seen my high resolution texture pack 5 video, you'll sort of be familiar with the kind of comparison before and after. The only difference is in this case is I can actually just start the game and actually let it come in. So what we'll do is look at young Nikolai here, and look at his striped shirt. It has that kind of like squared, blocky, Lego-y kind of anti-aliasing on it that's indicative of a somewhat lower res texture. Now, in a moment, it will resolve, and it did this of its own accord, and I'll talk about time and how long this takes and the performance issues in the next item. But there you can see that's the difference, and I'll show you another one. If you look at Rose's leg here and those two white rectangles going down past her knee, those will also resolve. Now those two textures, the striped shirt and the leg, and presumably other textures these operators will as well, will now have gone in my bin. So if I ever come across these particular operator skins in game, it'll be instant, because it's then going to retrieve them from the bin, the old mini texture pack bin that's there. So that's it. That's the difference. Now, if you're a sniper, you will never ever notice this, and you're going to ask yourself, well, I'm not even going to bother turning that on. But bear with me for the next point in terms of whether or not it's worth doing, even if you don't care about the visuals. But ultimately, that's it. Now, whether or not it affects guns, I'm not 100% on, because by the time I look at a gun, it's already resolved. But given that the texture packs that you installed did affect guns, I'm assuming they do too. But that's it. That's what it does. You can decide if that visual improvement is worth your time. And so we come to the interesting question of whether or not having on-demand high-resolution texture streaming is a detriment to your packet loss, your latency, your ping. Would it make you a better player or worse? Well, this is kind of to and fro. Obviously, if it's getting textures on demand, it would effectively add more strain on your bandwidth. Although, as I've said a couple of times, it's already doing that. It's just doing it with slightly higher resolution textures. But one of the things I always used to say about the texture packs is they aid performance, because rather than going online and getting textures, it's now going on your hard drive. And that's true of on-demand texture streaming, since technically it's not actually streaming. So it's kind of a plus and a minus. If you turn it on, there's a good chance a guy you come across, an enemy, say, for example, who's wearing a skin you've never seen before, would actually hinder, shall we say, your data rate. On the other hand, if you have come across him before, it would be faster than getting the standard definition out. Now, of course, there's a lot of speculation here on my part. I don't know if it gets the standard definition anyway, regardless of whether you've got it in your bin, or it just goes looking in the bin first. That'd be down to how it's programmed. If you're ever playing a game and you go to your settings/options and go to account, you will actually see your current latency and ping. The trouble is you could play 20 games in a row with texture streaming on and then texture streaming off, and you get such a wild different rate that it's hard to say if it would negatively or positively affect your game. The only thing I could say is it's a simple click to enable it, have a go, but give it a fair crack at the whip. Try games at different times of the day, try games at different times of the week. The weekend's going to be more congested, and so on. And then we come to how long it takes for these textures to come in. When I showed you Nikolai and Rose earlier, Rose took 5 minutes to resolve at the time that I recorded that, and Nikolai took about 1.5 minutes. Now, I've got a comparison video coming up soon, probably the next video after this one, that shows lots and lots of comparisons of before and after with the texture streaming option on. And the actual quickest time it took for a texture that I'd never seen before to come in was 10 seconds, and the longest time was 8 minutes. That actually meant I sat looking at an operator, obviously with a delicious beverage in hand, watching it, hoping it would come in after 8 minutes. And of course, not every texture is covered by this streaming option. So the average actually worked out, assuming we discard the upper and lower limits, to be about 1 minute to 1:10 for it to come in. But don't think of it like that. Think of that, once that 1:10's happened, it won't happen again unless that gets pushed out of the bin through non-use. And I'm assuming there's some sort of like algorithm or equation that says, hey, I haven't used this, I haven't seen this skin for a while, we'll just discard it for the skins we see all the time. When John Rambo and John McClane came out, everyone was wearing them. So imagine those operator skins in the bin, it would actually speed up the game. On the other hand, when Vanguard comes out, there'll be lots and lots of new skins and guns that you won't have in that bin. I also think at some point they're going to increase the size of the bin. Why it's 24 gig, I don't know, but that's what it is. When you enable it, it says, do you want to set aside 24 gig on your hard drive for this option? I would imagine 50 gig may be more usable, or maybe they've come to the opinion that for optimization purposes, that's the best number. But ultimately, I can't give a definitive, yes, it's good for your game or it's bad for your game. I can only say, give it a try. In my experience of playing this game with texture streaming on, I've noticed no increase in issues. I've noticed no decrease in the quality of the visuals by turning it off either. There's no right or wrong answer here. It depends on your platform, the speed of your internet, the congestion of the Activision servers at the time, and probably whether there's a Y in the day of the week. Who knows? Ultimately, give it a go. Anyway, I guess that's it from me. Hopefully I've answered most of your questions regarding on-demand high-resolution texture streaming, but I welcome any comments and questions you may have. Let me know. And also look out for a full comparison video akin to my old texture pack videos very, very soon. In the meantime, I'll just say that my name's Vinny Voodoo, and thanks for watching.